Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show, How We Grow. This is your essential playbook to grow and scale your vacation rental business. With advice and insights from the best in the biz, I'm your host, Lynell Gordon. Welcome to the Vacation Rental Show. I'm Lynell Gordon, your host. I'm really excited today to bring to you Jonathan Fonvielle. He's a seasoned business development manager. In other words, he's working with homeowners and he's a wealth of experience. He's worked in a family business with some of the biggest names in the business that you guys know if you ever go to VRMA. He is actively involved in the industry leadership, and he comes by that rightly. His family has always taken point and tried to help other property managers. And he serves on various committees for the VRMA. And I think you chair the ambassador committee right now. Is that right, Jonathan?
I did for a while. I was on 3 different committees and chair of the ambassador, but I've now gotten off of all of them.
Well, good. That's the key. You get in, you do work, you get out. But listen, beyond his work in vacation rentals, guys, you have to know that he is passionate about rugby. And somebody said to me, I don't know if it's true, you have to tell me, that you actually represented the USA at the World Maccabi Games in Israel and the Pan American Games in Chile. Is that true?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
In 2015 in Chile and then in 2022 in Israel. So I was able to get a break from our busy season to go spend a month overseas.
How wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the program. We are excited to learn from you.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about homeowners. What advice would you give to property managers who are struggling with homeowner relations and specifically business development, getting new homeowners and retaining them?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is ultimately communication and having, open streams of communication with your homeowners and being really detailed with them on the onboarding process so that they know what to expect and you're able to provide them all the information they need. I think that's something we've kind of struggled with at times because there's sometimes so much information in training people how to be a good homeowner, what they need to be doing. So we've been trying to build out our systems to have better and more regular communication from both kind of the acquisition and onboarding process, but also for our current homeowners.
What would you say is the hardest part of your job?
I think it is dealing with a lot of different personalities all the time that have different goals and objectives. And, I would say our industry is matching, we have 2 different clients, our homeowners and our guests, and we have to make them match with their wallets, their values, their expectations for a home without them ever meeting or communicating. So I think kind of that algebra is the difficult part. And with homeowners, getting them to understand what they need to do. Guests are fairly easy to understand. Homeowners, not always.
That's so true. That is true. That is the one job. And people have heard me say this over and over during my career. That's the one job I said I would never do. And it's because exactly what you say, there's so much and you never know what to expect. It's like Forrest Gump, life with a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know with the homeowner. How do you handle unhappy homeowners?
Again, the communication, talking to them, understanding what the issues are, trying to create a plan to get ahead of them for the future. Or in some cases, it may be, ending relationships with that homeowner if it's something that you don't feel is reasonable. But we find if they're making enough money, then they're pretty easy to handle. And it's pretty easy to get through those objections. If their house isn't rented as much as they think it should be, that's where it can be a little more difficult. But for most homeowners, it comes down to, how the property was left and are they making money? Or for some of them, it's only one of those 2 items. But, making sure we can create a plan to address that and get to those goals.
So how often do you communicate with the homeowner? Does it depend on the homeowner or is it specifically you have this schedule that you contact them?
We don't have a specific cadence right now. It's actually something we're working on internally is to get monthly reporting so that they know exactly what's going on. So it's not necessarily us picking up the phone every time, but just giving them hey, here's the reviews we got. Here's the feedback from our staff who's in the home. Here's the work orders we're doing or improvements we need to make. So that's something we're working on right now on building out a little bit better. Some of our homeowners we talk to every week because they reach out and, there's some that every booking, they send an email asking all about it, what's going on. There's some others that we only talk to a few times a year, but we have For some of them, those are our strongest relationships because they trust us and we've built that relationship. So we don't need to talk to them. We know that we can do what we need to do, and they trust us to do it.
How much does your job bleed over into other areas of the business? Being a family business, I know a lot of times we wear a lot of hats. How much of your job blends over or runs over into other areas? Are you guys really good at keeping it within the lines?
No, I have my hands in absolutely everything. So I've spent most of this week working with our housekeepers and our operations staff on redoing our whole relationship with our housekeepers and how we use Breezeway and updating Breezeway and our inspection process and changing linen providers and all of those things. So that's all under my purview as well. So at this point, I'm kind of managing most aspects of the business. But my title is still business development director, but that's just one of the many things that I'm doing.
What would you say is the hardest part of vacation rentals for growth, for actually trying to grow through inventory acquisition?
I think for us, with where we are geographically, we're in Gloucester, in Rockport, Massachusetts, two other surrounding towns. We're about 45 minutes northeast of Boston, and so we're very seasonal. Summer
Right.
beach town, and a lot of very old homes, and a lot of local homeowners, and a lot of our houses are family homes they inherit, or maybe they bought to use for themselves. So dealing with owner usage is a huge issue. A lot of our owners like to come to the house a lot, and even taking, if they take 2 weeks of the summer, that could be 10% of our potential revenue for the year. So it's very difficult trying to balance what houses we take on with, not just do we like the homeowner or trust them? Do we like the house? It's, are they going to give us enough time to rent? Is it something we think is rentable? Are we going to be able to rent it all year? We do a lot of what we call winter rentals, where people come on a lease, for 6-7 months over the winter. So, we get a lot of calls from people who want to rent their house that are, oh, can you rent a month at my house? Can you rent 2 weeks? Can you fill my gaps? And so kind of filtering through those, and then, working with some of the homeowners who have a house that isn't ready. Sometimes it's a 3-year process to list the house. We've had that plenty of times where they inherit it, and it's the house is a disaster, and it takes that time to get it ready and get it rentable. And so I think for us, it's that, we're not working with seasoned vacation rental or short-term rental homeowners who know that they want to get into it. A lot of the people I work with don't know what they want to do with their house, and they look to me to decide, should they sell it? Should they do a year-round rental? Should they do short-term rentals? What do they need to do? Is it the right path for them? So it's a lot more for me than I think just kind of selling a product. It's helping them actually figure out a plan for their house. And
I
then
love
also
that.
figuring out if it works for us.
I love that because you're giving advice. And I think that's really important that you have the wisdom to be able to do that, because when they look to, a professional to manage their house, they really do. They're part of it that you said was very simple is, are they making enough money? Are they happy? The harder part is dealing with advice when they want advice as far as, should I sell it? How much will I make? What has the market done? What has your market done in your area in the last 2 years?
You mean for sales or for vacation
For
rentals?
sales.
For sales, it definitely had dropped probably 2 years ago, and it picked up a lot recently. I think it's been pretty strong the last probably year or so.
Yeah, I saw that too. The valuation, did you see a difference in the valuation of the properties in the last year and a half or so? Did it go up and then go down?
I think it definitely went up, post-COVID. I'm not sure that it went down, but I think things definitely flatlined a little bit. So where it feels a little bit more static maybe than it did, the last couple of years of COVID, of being a bit more of a roller coaster.
We're both on the Atlantic coast. So we had a house at the end of our beach that sold for basically what we thought was twice as much as it should have. It ended up, we've never had a house sell that much on the beach. And it went under contract, and it was a great house. We really wanted it for our rental program. But the problem was it was way overpriced. It went under contract within 3 days. And surprised, it was a real surprise. I mean, I was shocked. So was that person used to be the BIC. at the company, and because we were talking about it. And I wondered if that was happening in other areas, if they're just having some really anomalies in the sales prices of our rental homes.
Yeah, there's definitely some, and we've definitely seen homeowners who paid a lot for their houses and are not making or not able to make the returns they maybe thought. I've turned away a few really nice houses because the owner expectations were really high. And in the last year, I've seen a lot more people who are going to sites like AirDNA,
Right.
which I think in our area is not typically very accurate because, again, we have so many old houses. You might have a house in a great neighborhood that the neighbor has beach access, but you don't. Or you're on the water, but you can't access it. Or you're near a beach, but there's no sidewalk. Half the house has air conditioning, half the house doesn't. There's all these kind of funky things. And so it can be really inaccurate. So I had a homeowner come to me and beautiful house. It was all ready to go. It told me what he paid, told me what his monthly, needs were, and told me what AirDNA told him he was going to make. So when I said our commission, he's like, perfect. That nets me exactly where I want to be. And then when he told me that gross number, I was like, well, we're not going to do that. That's impossible. Maybe not impossible, highly, highly, highly unlikely,
Highly
especially in year
unlikely.
one.
Yeah.
So, it would have had to have outperformed every other house that we have, which seemed unrealistic. So we're starting to see, or have been for the last year, a lot more of that. But people coming in with a number in mind. And if I don't think that's realistic, then, if I can't change their mind, then we can't take on that house. Or if they
Nope.
need that number to keep it, then it's just not worth it.
I think a lot of people, when they purchase a home and they purchase a home for rental, I have to be honest, even with myself, when I purchased my home for rental, I had no idea, even though, even though I knew uh, basically what it should rent for, I didn't, there's so many expenses that you cannot calculate. We had a disaster happen the second year after we bought it, and the whole bottom floor had to be torn out and redone. And so rather than recoup after 7 years, because we got a really great interest rate, we now are looking more at 15 years to recoup the amount of money it took to redo that because our insurance then decided they wouldn't pay. So we had to sue our insurance company.
Wow.
You never know what's going to happen in a home. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to homeowners that come in? I understand the ones that come in and they're just out of the ballpark. But what about the ones that come in that you could, they're at the top? Do you manage their expectations by making sure they understand clearly that that's could be, but it's not likely?
Yeah, I try to give them conservative estimates of how I think we'll do. And uh, again, some of it for us are winter rentals. So if a homeowner expects their house to be filled all year, then it relies on us doing a winter rental, which we do well with, but they can be hit or miss. And so, making sure they understand the whole picture and how it's going to fit together and how their owner usage affects it. And then also letting them know that they're taking a risk. When people ask me what they should do, I always just tell them, if you want peace of mind, we can do a year-round rental. And we can do that as well. And we can find someone. There's a huge shortage of more permanent housing in our area. We can find someone in 2 weeks to live there and move in and know what you're going to get in rent. But if you want to use the house, if you want to make improvements, if you want to really maximize the amount of revenue you can make, then let's do short-term rentals. But you have to be able to take the risk and know that there may be 6 months of no income until we
Yeah.
start, getting people into the house, especially depending on the time of the year. So definitely setting those expectations and understanding that it's not some, money machine that we turn on and as soon as we list it, everyone's going to start booking and your house is going to jump to the top of every listing site. It's going to take
Do
a
you
little
have,
while. And we tell them it takes a year to build reviews, repeat renters, for us to know what's going on and be able to do everything properly.
you answered my next question. That was exactly what I was going to ask, because that's the same thing here. It takes us a while to get those return rentals. And I love the fact that when you have the return renters, we had some very, very nice comments that I read when I got here a few weeks ago. And they said, "Oh, we're so sorry for what happened to your house. We had to move all of our return renters." And when you do that, that you lose return renters because they go somewhere else and you don't always
Yeah.
get them all back. But they were so nice. They were like, "We're so sorry this happened to you. We're so happy to be back in your house." Let me ask you this. For growing and recruiting, how do you recruit your property managers? Your properties. As property managers, how do you recruit? What are you doing for recruiting?
So we really have not done much. We've been around for a long time, about 40 years. We've a strong reputation, and we didn't have much competition in the past. We do now, really, in just the last year or two, where more actual, short-term rental management companies have popped up, but they really weren't around, certainly not at any scale. And, it was really for a while, it's Coxa, but we didn't really consider them competition.
I understand.
And so, now we're working on creating more outbound marketing and a better sales funnel. But traditionally, it's just been inbound calls. People see our signs, they hear about us, get referrals. Our dream cycle, and I'm sure everybody has this, is we get our renters who want to buy a house. They buy it from us, they list it with us to rent, and eventually they sell it, and we get the listing and we sell it to another renter. So we actually have a fair number of our homes, a decent percentage of them that are former renters.
I love that. I'll bet you get a lot of referrals too. Since
We do,
you're
yeah.
not doing active recruiting, that word of mouth is so powerful for people. What advice would you give to other vacation rental businesses that are looking to scale, but they want to keep that personal touch? Because you obviously have a really personal touch in what you do. What advice would you give them to how to keep that?
I would say to be very selective in the homes that you take on and the homeowners you work with. I think our homeowners who are the happiest are the ones who just kind of let us do our system. They might push back in terms of, constructive feedback here and there, and that's great. We want that. Shows that they care. But the ones who are only looking at their bottom line or only focused on one aspect or want to know everything that's going on in the house and every renter, those are the people who are going to drag you down, even if they care and want you to succeed. It's our homeowners who really treat it like a partnership, and they're providing an asset and we are the ones managing it and doing it. And they let us do what we need to do to run our systems and kind of get out of our way, but give us feedback when they need it. And that's really hard to figure out ahead of time. After now 10 years, I've figured out a lot of the red flags and green flags. But, you can have the right house and the wrong homeowner. And that's very difficult. So I try to put everything in a little matrix of, right homeowner, right house. Those are amazing. Right homeowner, wrong house. That usually corrects itself or is okay, even if it's not the most rentable home. If the owner's great to work with and it's worth keeping. Right house, wrong homeowner are your difficult ones. And then wrong house, wrong owner you fire. But it's that right house, wrong owner where it's very easy to get tempted by, the beautiful luxury modern beachfront house that has everything you need. But if the owner is going to be calling you every day, or if they're they tell you they want their renters to take their shoes off at the door, that's a red flag that is going to cause you issues down the line. And even though it may be your top revenue producing home, it may be your top stress producing one as well. So trying to understand, that the homeowners you work with are the people who are going to make your job easier or difficult way more than the renters.
Built by property managers for property managers. Streamline is a powerful software that gives managers enterprise-level capabilities to drive more revenue and improve operational efficiency. Migrating to Streamline allows property managers to gain functionality while reducing the need for multiple vendors, improving flow by logging into a single system and reducing redundant technology costs. With Streamline, property managers achieve revenue lifts by leveraging our fully fledged communication center, reservations quoting system, revenue management tools, homeowner acquisition CRM, and powerful direct OTA connections. Streamline also has industry-leading trust accounting and report capabilities to give you clarity in an overall company performance. Learn more about Streamline Vacation Rental Software at streamlinevrs.com.
It always makes me chuckle when I hear things like that because I know it's a real story. I've heard it more than once too. Tell me your favorite property management story, either with a renter or with an owner.
Sure. So this one was probably 10 years ago at this point. And it, I think, was our first ever Airbnb booking. And it was our maybe first or second ever rental at a brand new home. And our person who had done all the onboarding for this home had retired a couple weeks before. So no one here really had a relationship with the homeowner who was out of town, out of state. renter calls on Saturday morning. It was a 3-night stay, 4-night stay, and a little cottage right on the beach in a nice little community. And they called saying the house was haunted. And my mom actually picked the phone and was like, I need to put this on speakerphone, and so someone else could hear. So, this person's going on about how the water in the bathroom turned on its own. Their watch fell off the bureau. Their husband saw a black orb hovering over their kid. And then their daughter saw 2 women standing in the bedroom. And she talked to the neighbors, who told her how there were these 2 sisters who used to live there, and they were all freaked out about the ghost. And all 8 of them, the 6-person house, all 8 of them slept in the living room.
Oh my goodness.
Even their dogs in the non-pet friendly home were freaked out. And they were going to leave a day early. And they weren't going to tell anyone at home about this. And then the dad, who was on the trip, he called as well, freaked out. So I went over to the house, and everything was fine. I walked around, and a neighbor was walking by, who I kind of knew, and I asked him about the sisters who used to live there. And he's like, oh, yeah, they just moved around the corner. I'm having lunch with them today. And so they weren't dead. They weren't haunting it. They had just moved down the street. And we hadn't yet told the homeowners. We didn't really have a relationship. There wasn't anything actionable. I mean, I'm thinking, let's turn this into a haunted house. We're half an hour from Salem, the home of Halloween. We get a lot of traffic in October for Halloween. So I'm thinking this is our haunted house. And the owner calls and says, why didn't you tell me, that this is going on? Because the neighbor called him, and we said, well, what are we going to tell you, that your house is haunted? I've never talked to you before. It's not going to be my first call. And then the wife called and said, this is my happy place. This house is not haunted. This is my beach house. And let's forget this ever happened. But then the renter ended up accidentally taking their air mattress from the house to their home, and they came back and dropped it off at our office, but they wouldn't touch it. They made someone from our office come out and get it out of their car. They thought it was haunted. So, but no one else had any hauntings there. So,
Well, that's interesting. Wow. Okay, that leaves me speechless. That's like
that was a fun one.
That's like the homeowners. I mean, the renters that called and asked. They said there were sharks out in front of their
Oh, wow.
out in front of their house. Would we please come and get rid of the sharks so they could swim? I mean, you can't make it up, guys. These are things
Nope.
that actually happen during vacation rentals. Let me ask you this. If you could build any piece of technology that would help you, because you've been in it a long time, what kind of technology do we need to help us to save time or to make more money?
I think I would have something that would help funnel information from our homeowners straight to the listing and to the software. So being able to, have a way to collect, whether it's annually or regularly, or a login for the owners, or just in onboarding, but a way that they can tell us who their contacts are, what amenities the house has, or when they make changes, that there can be kind of a straight way to get from the owner to where all of the information needs to be. Right now we put things in several places, into Track, into Breezeway, into HubSpot, into whatever else we're using. And so there's a lot of manual entry. And so being able to collect the information from the homeowner that says, hey, I redid the kitchen. We now have a convection oven, and we have type of coffee maker, and we have all these different things, that there'd be a way for them to kind of enter that up to approve it, so that it filters the amenities for the house into Breezeway, into the property management system, into, all the kind of different areas of the business.
I actually wrote a piece of software that does that.
Oh, wow.
And they're having real trouble getting rid of it. I mean, we integrated a lot of our products into other Inhabit products, and it's called Owner Addendums. And people, they don't want to give that up. And so I remember this year, the property manager one of the property managers said to me, I'm not giving this up until they until they do it, because you're right. They need a place that the homeowner can log in. You can offer them all the cool stuff that you're doing this year, and they can sign off on it. They can look at their rates. The rates would automatically push in, which they do. They can accept your rate that you say that you want, or they can choose their own rates. And it also allows them to say, here are my new amenities. Here's my new description, which if they want to put their own description in. It also does upsells for the homeowner. But yeah, somebody needs to write something that, I mean, I wrote that probably 7 years ago or 8 years ago. But somebody does need that software. If you guys are listening, we need that. And Streamline's actually working on, they've got most of it already there and
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
So they're just missing a couple of parts.
We would never want to give the homeowner the option to write the listing, but or the description, but that would be terrifying. We get enough recommendations from them as it is, telling us what to change. So
Well,
certainly getting the information in there.
well, it's not so bad. And then you get to push it in. Somebody has to approve that. It doesn't automatically go in. You have to push a button. It will go in if you push the button, like that part. But using ChatGPT and allow them to write their own description is not a bad idea because it does a really good job nowadays. They
Yeah.
don't even have to do it. And we can do it in-house too. But I think that, I don't know, let's talk about that because I'm interested in your take on this. When I think about who knows that house more and why it's such a great vacation rental, there are some property owners that would have no idea. I visit, I love it. And they have no creativity. But there's a lot of homeowners out there that actually say, the best part of this house is going out and sitting on the top rocking chairs that we keep up there and looking out to the right at sunset. When the sun sets, you can see it turns orange every single time or pink. And those types of things that create word pictures. But you can do it with ChatGPT now a lot better. Just saying.
Yeah. And I asked them that in onboarding, what their favorite features are. And for those that know that have spent time there, we definitely do try to work those into the description and into marketing. But we've definitely had a lot of homeowners who they reach out and they say, can you change the caption here, swap these photos, put this, get rid of that. Here's my new description for you to use. And we're like, well, we just had our best year ever. Why would we go change all this now? And but
Yeah.
it definitely would feel giving them a little bit of ownership to have
But
their
you don't need them to
contribution.
do the marketing. That's what they're paying you to do. And I think that's the pushback there. You're paying us to market your home. We promise we know what the guests want when they come. So yeah, there is definitely pieces that you want to keep your homeowners out of and your guests out of, quite frankly, pieces of the business. Let me ask you this. What do you think is going to make the biggest impact on the vacation rental business in the next few years?
Good question. I think the level of professionalism has gone up a lot. And I think the expectation from a lot of people to have, I think, kind of flashy amenities and photos and fun things at the houses that really differentiate them, I think are going to make massive differences moving forward. I think there's a lot of that happening now. And I don't think everybody wants it. Some people just want simple and straightforward. But I think a lot of people who are, the rent buy owners or, more kind of legacy companies that haven't adapted and rely on their, 90% repeat renters are going to get left behind if they can't truly step up to the modern expectations of, with marketing, with amenities in the houses. And I think the safety piece as well of really treating it as a business. Hotels take their safety seriously. They have to have sprinklers. They have to have all these different things. The sign on the door telling you how to get out of the house. I think that same aspect as well, that renters are going to start being more savvy to those things and understanding that they're not just renting someone's room or their beach cottage that they're not using that week, that the level of professionalism from a manager has to be very, very, very high. And I think a lot of people have done very well doing things the same way for a very long time now. And I think those people are going to get left behind.
I agree with the professionalism. 100% I agree with that. I also think the homeowners are changing somewhat. I think that the people, especially over the last couple of years where the interest rates have been really high, I think the type of people that can afford to have bought cash and they're investors. There's a lot of investors coming into the market. That house that sold for so much was an investor as well on the beach. And so I think that will change the level of our professionalism as well when we deal with those types of owners who all they want is the bottom line. That's a totally different presentation than the family who has rented their house and the homeowner who knows her neighbors and who calls them when there's a question about a haunted house. I think the level I think it's totally, our demographic is changing a little bit.
And we're seeing it in the performance of some of our houses. We have some places that are overall great houses, great homeowners overall, but that have older systems, have older bathrooms, kitchens, flooring, whatever it may be, with homeowners who aren't willing to spend the six figures it might take to really make it what it needs to be. And they're starting to underperform compared to more modern homes, even though these houses may have a better view, more land, better parking, whatever it may be. If they don't have all the modern bells and whistles or pretty close, uh, or really that kind of modern feel inside, those ones are starting to split. And for us, air conditioning is kind of the big piece of that. It's a new thing in the last 5 years for houses to have air conditioning up here and to really need it. I go on a lot of meetings where people say, "Oh, you don't need it except for 1 week. Just open the windows, put in window units." And that was acceptable 10 years ago. It was okay 5 years ago, and now it's not.
Oh.
And so, the investors, those are the people who are willing to put the money in, which can be a lot in a 1820 summer cottage that doesn't have insulation to get it, air conditioning installed. But that is what it's taking now to still be at the top of the pack in terms of rental.
I think that's so true. I think that Estes Park found that out too, in those areas in Colorado where they didn't need air conditioning. And then when they did need it, I can tell you that personally, I would never again, you do it once, you never do it again, rent a home in those areas where there's no air conditioning. Even in Europe, I mean, there's a lot of places in Europe that are not air conditioned and they're hot. They're just simply uncomfortable. And people, you're right, they're not willing to do that anymore. They're not willing to stay in that house. When for $1,000 more, or $2,000 more, they're going to have the amenity they need there.
Yeah, and I tell homeowners as well that it's going to limit the geography of who's going to rent your house. If you have a couple window units or no air conditioning, the people who live in Massachusetts or in New England who also don't have air conditioning or have window units may be fine with that. But the people coming from Texas, they don't even know that window units are a thing. Central air is everywhere. So even just having mini splits, them is a step down.
Yeah.
And, the 80 degrees here still may be cool compared to the 100 degrees in Texas, but they're expecting central air. And we see that now where people show up and even having mini splits or part of the house be air conditioned isn't enough, and window units certainly aren't. Not to mention they're ugly, loud, and safety hazards. But
Yeah.
but a lot of our houses still have them.
Are they now putting in the ones that I've seen that they started putting in are the ones that, especially to retrofit an old house, they're the ones like they use in Europe that go up on the top.
Yep.
And they come down. I mean, those are comfortable, but we actually have those in our place in Jerusalem. And we live in Texas. I live in Dallas. So I cannot imagine. I have rented homes with no air conditioning, and I would never do it again. I just already said that. I'll say that twice or three times. So if you have trouble convincing your homeowners to air condition their house in some way to keep it, my nephew lives up in your neck of the woods, and he doesn't have air conditioning. He has a very old house, and he's like, man, those nights. So I can see, how do you convince your homeowners to do that? You just let them know that the ROI is not going to be there as much?
I let them know that, there's fewer people who are going to rent. The revenue we're going to get is not going to be as much. And, it's tricky because you can't tell them that if you add air conditioning, it's going to add $1,000 a week. It's impossible to kind of tell them what that ROI is going to be, except that it will be higher over time. It's going to pay itself back. And part of that is just going to be guest reviews. You limit the opportunity for there to be a bad review. Of course, you could get air conditioning and it could break and that could lead to a bad review, but it's much more likely someone's going to say, hey, we had a great stay, but it's really hot in here. And now you don't know how many people didn't book the house because they read that review. And it could still be a 5-star review because they love the house, they love the service, but it was really humid, it was really hot, whatever it is, and that's going to hurt you in the long run. And we may not know the effect of that until it's too late.
You might, we actually did, we did a software that was called Insights, and we could actually track on the beach. Now, on our beaches, it's different than yours. We don't have you have huge diversity between this 5-bedroom house really cannot compare to this other 5-bedroom house. So, because of exactly what you said, location and different. And so apples to apples is really hard on yours.
Very difficult.
How many properties do you have?
It was 75.
Yeah. So I think you probably could quantify it a little bit. You just have to do some statistical analysis if it's a need for you, for your homeowners. We did the same thing for pools and hot tubs. I remember we did hot tubs for Outer Beaches way back in the day. We did some statistical analysis because they wanted more revenue, and they could get it through, if you added a hot tub, you could actually, and they could quantify about how much more you could charge for it. So not only did they get the homeowner to put in the hot tub by doing that, but they also got the money from them to clean it. So, I mean, it was really a whole project to do that. Do you guys ever do anything like that where you're like, here's our project for the year. This is what we want to accomplish at the end. And you have goals specifically for ROI centers for the year? Like increase the number of early check-ins. If you make whatever you make 100% on, maybe it's PPP. Let's make sure that we push our PPP because that is one of the highest revenue grossing. Do you guys do those types of things?
We've been working on that more recently. Certainly upsell things like early check-ins, late checkout. We're reading yesterday on a few of those other things that we can really push, the upsells, the add-ons. Kind of taking it back to the air conditioning as well. I'm working with an AC company now to push that to homeowners so that they can go give quotes to all of our homeowners and then be the ones who service it and all of that as well. And so I'm hoping we can get a few this year that we can then show to other homeowners, hey, they added $10,000 in revenue this year and got all 5-star reviews.
I love the fact that you made it easy for the homeowner. That is like such a win-win. Because, that's a big deal for a homeowner. Where am I going to do it? Who's going to do it for me? And how am I going to take care of that? Or how are you going to take care of it? And that's fabulous. That was a great plan. I wish you a lot of luck. I want to know how I'd love to know how it turns out. I'd love to see when we do things in our businesses that are quantifiable, that we can actually say, okay, what did that have effect-wise on our bottom line?
Yeah,
so I wish
absolutely.
you a lot of luck in that.
Thank you.
Is there any other advice that you'd give property managers?
I feel like there's a lot. There's certainly a lot of things. And I'd say my biggest piece of advice that I'm telling myself a lot right now is, to delegate and get people to help and own the different systems. I find for myself, I tend to not ask for help. And there's capable people around me. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed, especially when you're in your busy season and you have homeowners and guests and people bringing problems to you, delegate some of that out, make sure you have good systems in place so that you're not bogged down in every little detail. Because I think that's I know a lot of other people in businesses like ours, and that their summer or whatever their peak season ends up being ruined because they just spend all day responding to issues. And especially when you're smaller, 50, 100, 200 homes, you're going to be dealing with a lot of those problems all the time. So just being able to find good people who can help you with that, but also putting a responsibility on them or on whatever software or AI, for whatever you can do to outsource some of these issues so that you're not dealing with every little thing that pops up.
Jonathan, I really appreciate that's excellent business advice as a whole. It really is. I'm working with a nonprofit right now, and I'm trying very hard to delegate and put those systems in place. And I think the delegation, it's not worth it if you don't have the systems in place, because then it ends up coming back to you anyway. So I think that is tremendous advice, guys, for anybody out there who is trying to scale. Scalability depends on delegation and systems in place that can be taken over by somebody else. Thank you so much for joining us. I love your mom. I love your family. They are treasures of information and kindness in the industry. And I wish you the very best of luck. Congratulations on doing such a great job running the company. And
Thank you.
I hope we get to talk at VRMA.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This episode of How We Grow is brought to you by Streamline. To find out more about how Streamline can help grow your vacation rental business, visit streamlinevrs.com. Make sure to search for How We Grow in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. On behalf of the team here at Inhabit, thanks for listening.